So Ubisoft last week, they had a Ubisoft Forward presentation, and now I already talked about some of the games that they showed off in that presentation, which was Far Cry 6 and Watch Dogs Legion, uh, and they also showed off Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and we've talked a lot about that game, so I decided to leave it for this week. And they had a 30-minute presentation where they had some voiceover between a couple of people who worked at Ubisoft, and they went through the game, showing a lot of interesting aspects of the game. So you can check out the 30-minute gameplay walkthrough on YouTube yourself. I'll leave a link in the description below. But let's have a read through the Eurogamer article, which lists a little bit of what was actually in the gameplay demo. And so they say this section shows a climatic fort assault spotted in those leaks, but also some more peaceful gameplay exploring East Anglia, which is supposed to be England, I guess, and attending a wedding between tribes. Well, it starts peaceful anyway. Several long-lost features return from previous Assassin's Creed entries. You can once again engage in social stealth within crowds by putting up your hood and blending in. You can hunt down pieces of paper via AC3 style parkour challenges. These now unlock tattoo designs, and chill out with a spot of fishing as in Black Flag. Regenerative health is gone, replaced by the need to forage for food and eat rations. There's now a gallop meter for horses and a charisma meter for conversations. Other activities shown included flighting. So this is more like a rap battle, or at least that's how they described it in the trailer. Building cans. Building cans is stacking rocks to make it to a specific height, but if you don't stack it properly, then the rocks fall off. But this makes a lot more sense if you actually watch the trailer rather than me explaining it. And drinking games where you chug horns of drink. And you can interact and recruit cats to join your longship crew. So you can also check out this video. I haven't looked at that video because I watched the 30-minute trailer. But the few things that were in the game, they showed off the combat, and it looked like it was very visceral, a little bit more improved from the Origins and Odyssey gameplay. It looked like it was a lot faster. And I do believe they brought back the shield, although I don't remember. So there was a lot of diving around in the gameplay demo where they're storming the fort. And it looked like Eivor had a lot of moves at her disposal. So she looked like she was just a superhero, basically, just diving around everywhere and coming up around behind the enemies, and then just attacking them from behind. So the combat, I think, if you're after more action, then this definitely for sure has more action elements than your Odyssey and Origins combat. They also showed off some of the fishing. It looked kind of like, Zelda or whatever have you. They also showed off if there are houses locked, it becomes more like a puzzle and you have to work out how to get in. So in the demo, you can actually look through some of the windows and see that there's a lock on the door, and you can use your bow and arrow to shoot an arrow through and break the lock to open the door from the other side. They also showed the flighting, which was basically like you need to read the best response, and so there would be a sort of like a rap battle where one guy would give you a comment, and then you had to reply back with a more smart aleck comment, and if you did that enough times, and if he thinks your responses are good, then he will then you win the rap battle. But basically overall, I think that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is still a fairly similar game to at least the last two Assassin's Creeds that we've seen. I feel like Origins is much different to the earlier titles, but Valhalla is more of the same of the last two. So in a way, you could call this a bit of a trilogy between these three. And I guess the next Assassin's Creed will be a more next-gen version, and this is more the cross-gen version of Assassin's Creed. Um, I feel like with Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, this was the time where they really decided that they wanted to go with an open world Assassin's Creed. And we saw in the past with Syndicate, it was a much smaller area where it was more city focused. But with Origins and Odyssey, we had these large sprawling maps with lots of water around everywhere, and it looks like there's probably going to be a lot of water too, with the Vikings and the Viking longships in Valhalla. So I think the thing that's going to define Assassin's Creed this generation is the massive open world. Now, actually, I don't think that's a really good design, gameplay design, because as I said in my review, my very first review for my YouTube channel, the distances between locations and things that you do, if it's too long, then most of that is just going to be walking around, and it's kind of going to be boring gameplay. Like if you have to go from one location to another, there's nothing fun about doing the travel, and you kind of cheat yourself if you have to put a fast travel option into the game where you have to skip all over the place. And having such a large map and having a lot of repetitive running around kind of is wasting the player's time. And I think that's an issue with Valhalla. I mean, obviously we haven't seen the map yet. We don't know how big it is. Hopefully it's going to be more condensed with more things to do, but I think you can see from the gameplay itself, from the gameplay demo, that it's kind of looking like a very similar game to Origins Odyssey. Now, if you like those, then great. I think you also like this because it's going to be improved on that. But if you don't like it, I don't know if there's going to be that much different to the other two games. And if you've never played one before, yeah, I would suggest, you'd probably want to play Valhalla because it's probably going to improve on a lot of the things that made Origins Odyssey kind of boring and people were complaining about so long. So I would recommend, even if the other couple are cheap, I would probably just recommend to get Valhalla anyway. Well, we don't know if it will be good or not, but I think, I think they will probably improve over time. And yeah, I think the other thing that we saw a lot of in the gameplay demo was that there was quite a lot of conversation. They did talk over the top of that in the in their gameplay demo. But honestly, a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the story in Assassin's Creed is really dry and boring, and it looks like that hasn't really changed either. So I'm a little bit concerned about that as well. I just judging from the gameplay demo, if that's more of the if that's the type of if that's the quality that we're going to get, then I'd probably expect that throughout the rest of the game. So I don't really have very high hopes for the story itself. But if you wanted to play an open world game where you're just running around killing everyone, then I think Assassin's Creed Valhalla is probably the game that you want to play.